look skinnier.
You probably got that.
Quarantine body.
Hey guys, this is Britt. I am here with my dear friend Krystle, who I'm so thankful for you. Answering all of my hard questions, my embarrassing questions, my ugly questions.
Okay. You got to have one person that you can go and be real raw with.
Right. And, you know, I just feel like through all of this, from day one, you've been so helpful, just holding space. So I just want to say thank you and just honor you publicly okay, this is going to sound weird, but this is the nature of the podcast, for being Black and holding the space for white people to learn and understand, because we are, like, I know we talked about it, like racial reconciliation books are going for $60 on Amazon. So we got to
I wrote one.
we're doing something right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would love, just tell people a little bit who you are and, like, I don't know, something kind of fun.
Okay. Let's see. I'll do a fun fact at the end. I love doing those in my, circles. So my name is Krystle McNeely. I am from Waukegan, Illinois. I am actually 33 years old in a couple weeks. I have a background in education. I have a background in social services as well as law. So I got my law degree back in 2016. I did a combination of business and law. Was supposed to finish the MBA part, but I got like 4 more classes. Well, pray for me. So right now I've traveled. I did a nonprofit program for a few years, traveling the globe and teaching students of color and from disenfranchised backgrounds what it meant to prepare and to be a person of color in the legal field. So I worked with federal court judges, major corporations across, I think it was 10 states. So I would travel throughout the year teaching, staying every place for like a week or two. So that was an awesome experience. So it really opened my eyes. And I worked at a firm downtown Chicago for a little bit, did some diversity work there. And now I am on my own. Praise his high name. I am the owner and the founder of Zoe Life Academy. So we have a mission to provide equal opportunity and quality education for every child despite their color. So I came back home for where I grew up and working on some big projects here. I mentor, do some speaking, do all kind of fun stuff. So that's it. Oh, fun fact. I was in a T-Mobile commercial. I don't even think Britt knows this.
Shut up.
I sang in a T-Mobile commercial. I want to say it was 2015.
I gotta see this.
I'll send you the link. It was a Christmas commercial.
What was your line?
No, I was singing. So I was singing in a group in Chicago at that time, and we all auditioned for a Christmas commercial they did at Woodfield Mall. And it was like a flash mob. So our group, and we auditioned and we sang. It was fun.
Shut up. I feel
that's like a few days of my life. That was amazing.
Wow. Fun. I didn't know that.
I know. Fun fact.
Wow. That is a fun fact. That's so true. Okay. So I think we're going to start with the most basic question. And it was one of the questions that I asked you right out of the gate, because this is the question white people aren't asking. Okay. All right. In a conversation, do we refer to people as Black, African American, or colored? And I know that sounds dumb, but we gotta help us white people understand what is the right one to use, when to use them, how to use them.
Okay, so this is my experience, and experiences from what I've seen. You don't want to say colored, okay? Because I'm just gonna start there. Don't say that. It actually has such a negative connotation. So you want to think about where it began, where its roots are. In history, that is more of a slave term, and when there was a lot more segregation and things like that. So that kind of would trigger pain, right? It's kind of like the N-word being said by white people. And I know there's a lot of debate, Black people say it, so why we can't say it, but you have to look at the history behind the word, and you want to look at the weight that a word carries. It's just like if you call a child stupid. It's not necessarily a curse word, but think about that connotation. Think about the impact, right? What are you triggering for that person when you say a word? So color, it's safe to say, throw that off the table.
Throw that off the table.
So African American is more, a more progressive term, right? But what happens in the African American community, you have a lot of different sets of different races. So one of my closest friends from law school, she's Nigerian, right? So she may not say African American. So you have that kind of thing going on. Black, I think, is more acceptable these days, but you want to be careful about the motivation behind who you're talking about. I was talking to and I guess I could ask you guys, Caucasian versus white. Yeah. I was talking to a white guy, older older gentleman earlier this week, and he was throwing her around like black, and she's black, and I was like, oh, that doesn't sound that sweet, you know. But you know, he was saying it, he was talking more angrily. So he might have wanted to use African American, but it's all about knowing where you're at, knowing your circle. And I change up terms depending on my audience. So like with you, I know I can say white because there's no beef between us.
Right.
With someone else, I might say Caucasian or majority.
Yeah, so, that's good. I think I'll speak for white people. If someone calls me Caucasian, I'm just like, is that what I forget that's what I am. I know that's what I am. It sounds so dumb. I'm like, I think I'm Caucasian. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that sounds right. So yeah, I think at least for me, I'm just white. There's really nothing I can do about
it. And you know, and I'm one of those realists. I'm like, okay, we all know at the end of the day when we go home and we with our people, we're gonna call you white and y'all gonna call me black. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, but it's all about the spirit and the motivation behind what you're saying.
Well, and I think that's so good. Okay, so here's just a thought, and I think last night I was watching the news and they're covering all these protests, okay? And it's all white people for the most part. It's a lot of white people, which at first I'm like, where's our black community? But then I was like, wait a second, this is what we want. We want white people stepping forward. And so can you kind of walk me through, you know, how you see it? With so many people, so many white people stepping up, because I think as a white person, I'll go to, for instance, we were together last night at that peace gathering, and all I could think about was like, man, there's a lot of white people here. And I think that's a good thing, but it's really hard for me to get my brain to start changing the fact that it's good that white people are standing up for Black Lives Matter. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm going to use this analogy. So I was actually meditating on that last night and thinking about my own story and the representation in the circles and places I've been throughout my life. And the biggest thing I think I came away with, representation is so vital everywhere. Mm-hmm. So when I go places and I'm speaking to students in African-American communities or Black communities and brown communities, it's important that they see representation in the law that is a Black person. Yeah. Because I'm a firm believer that people don't strive for what they can't see. So if you can't visualize it, it won't become a reality, right? So people need to begin to see examples of white people and Black people together. Mm-hmm. So I think it's powerful that the white community is coming in to join the Black and brown community to protest against, you know, these injustices and, you know, pursue non-racism and anti-racism. Now, the caveat is that everyone's motives aren't pure. Right. And the problem with racism is, and inequality, it's hard to prove. So, you know, I'm an attorney. It's hard to find facts and evidence against someone's internal beliefs and biases. Right. So sometimes I'm looking at some of these protests and, you know, we've seen white people causing destruction and riots. And what it's doing is doing like the ripple effect. Yep. So if they go out there and they know they can get away with it and they're throwing bricks, tearing up stuff, we're already really in trauma. Yeah. So we're like, yeah, you know, so it's follow the leader. And when you're in those moments, you know, reasoning and stuff is not there. So I'm for the movement of Black, brown, and white coming together because it is necessary. It's not going to take one race. I am leery with some things only because you have to discern the motives behind everyone there, you know, because everyone isn't for the movement. They're just there for photo ops. I've seen videos of girls, white people getting out of cars, standing by a spray paint BLM and taking a picture, jumping back in their car and leaving. Right. You know, because right now it's becoming popular to, you know, say Black Lives Matter. Right. But they're really, and I think what the problem is, my God, people don't feel it. When you can't heal what you can't feel, right? And there is, it's a fear we have. Like I can't go certain places right now without like thinking twice. I've done it already, but where I live, it's not many people that got their hair like this. Right. And, you know, so I have to be careful because everybody will be nice to me. And my problem is sometimes that there's people that come from, you know, a different background that looks like they may not be as accepting. Yeah. So I'm all for the movement. I think it's necessary. Last night was amazing. It was really good to see, and I love it.
Yeah, so cool. And here's another question that I know you kind of helped walk me through. Actually, I have two questions. Let's go. I want to talk about the looting first. I know it sounds crazy, but you really helped me understand this because at first I think, and I know it's calmed down a little bit since, but I know there's still white people really like in this tense spot of, well, they don't have rights to destroy my prop kind of thing. I'm just being honest. And so you had kind of taught me that there are white people in protests that were designed to be peaceful that are starting violent acts, and people are following suit. This did not occur to me until you taught me. Because and I think that is probably a lot of America's first reaction is like, I'm just going to say like, oh, come on, Black people. Like, that's how you're going to respond. But then I had to look at, come on, white people, that's how you're going to respond. And this is like, we don't like to admit as a human race that it could be on us. You know, like I guarantee white people watching the looting never thought to question, did white people start that? You know, we assume it's somebody else. And so can you just walk me? I don't even know how you walked me through this, but I know you have wisdom behind this. And it really like got me to understand it better because I just didn't know. So yeah, thoughts on it.
Yeah, so here's my thoughts. And my pastor spoke about it last night too, that I don't condemn the loot. I don't condone the looting, breaking the law, you know, rioting. And I think what the true discussion needs to be is proper definition of everything. Protesters are okay.
Yeah.
Like that's protesting and looting, 2 different parties.
Right.
Protesting, looting, rioting, 3 different parties, right? So what's happening is in the white community, and it's funny that you say that, my news feed is so diverse, so I'm reading it all. What's happening, they're looping it all together, right? And it doesn't help that our president is saying different terms that's also, he's saying like, you know, lock up the protesters.
Right.
That's actually unconstitutional, right? So I think there needs to be a more intellectual discussion about what these terms actually mean. If we're taking it by face and not actually processing and thinking, yeah, they're gonna say, oh, these Black people are doing there, now they're stealing because they're mad. Right. No, it's 3 different parties. You have rioters, you have the protesters, and you have the looting. Now, as far as, you know, the looting, it's a problem. It's a problem, but this is what I say. If someone's response is, you know, it's sad that George Floyd and all these people died, but you shouldn't be looting. That's what we call gaslighting. That's you're valuing things that can be replaced over human lives. And this is our reality. People are now becoming licensed to kill, right? You know, you have the president behind you, they're not getting locked up. So that's when I hear statements like that, I'm like, okay, I know where you stand. And I keep my distance. Like, I understand this is horrible, but no. The true statement should be, you know what? It's really sad that these properties are being destroyed and they're stealing things, but human lives are greater, you know, Black lives matter. You know what I'm saying? So it's all about changing the narrative and switching the perspective. Yeah.
And like so much, you know, I found myself in a lot of prayer. I live in a city that is very high crime rate and nothing happened here. It does like it. And I know there was so much like intercessory prayer, but like people from the outside, just to be honest, that are involved with the mission work in the city were like, I'm so proud of the community. And even as a white person, I'm like, how do you be proud of something that you haven't helped mend? And I know that sounds like a really authentic, but I hope that whoever is listening to this, I hope you know that like, I'm saying this because I want you to get involved. I'm not saying it because I'm mad. I'm saying like, be a part of the solution before it's a problem. But with that being said, you know, I found myself in prayer, like, and even if something goes down, how cool that our community will have the opportunity to come together and clean it up. Because we will. And I read a quote, I got to pull my phone out because I'll mess it up. It's from Jenny Allen. And she tried to just put looting in perspective. And it was like maybe the most powerful thing and helpful thing I read. I should have pulled this up. Oh, it says, your friend whispers, hey, I don't feel safe. You ignore him. So he speaks louder. Hey, people I know and love are getting hurt, even killed. It feels like they might come for me next. Can you please help? No reply. My kid was killed and you don't care. Your friend starts banging pots and pans and screaming, please do something, help. And we respond, wow, buddy, calm down. You know it's wrong to yell like that. And that is exactly what we have done is we've ignored it for so long. And now and I know you work with kids, you know, so I know you get it. If a kid acts out, it's not because they want to, it's because they're scared, they're fearful, they're hurting, like something's wrong.
Exactly.
And we forget that as adults.
Yeah. And I think part of the white privilege discussion is that a lot of white people and people that it doesn't impact, we could just say privileged, period, because I can join that statement. Like, oh, it's happening in the inner city. I don't live out there, so I'm fine. But I have a greater responsibility. But it's an understanding that you have the luxury of turning your head. Like, that's not me. But it's recognizing that luxury and choosing not to turn your head and to look at it. You know, that is one of the crux of privilege, right? Like, I can say it. That's why I've been saying a lot. It's not enough not to be a racist.
Right.
Like, a lot of these white people, I don't believe are racist, but now the issue is you're not anti-racism, right? Because that says, you know what? Even though this doesn't impact me, I'm choosing to speak up against the injustice. And
can you walk us through that a little bit more? Because so from where you sit, watching your friends, because I know you have such a diverse timeline, what for you separates a friend that is not racist and a friend that is anti-racist?
Good question.
Sorry, I'm like, we got to talk about this.
I have to be careful.
Or just people. We'll take friends out of it. Just people in general. How?
No, it's okay. No, I'm totally here for it. I'm just, tasting my words before I eat them. Yeah, it's a hard place to be in.
Yeah.
It's like living in a bubble, and our realities are being popped, right? And I think that one of the greatest traumas for me these last few weeks have been, it feels like 2 weeks, I think it's only been 1 week, right? Having to sit in the reality that people who smile at me really don't like me, right? And I was talking to my mom about it, and I was like, man, we live in this privileged community, and we're going around, and this stuff starts to happen, but you see silence of people you interact with constantly. And it's like, okay, did you really, they say, I don't see color. But if you don't see color, you don't see me. Right? Because the problem with not seeing color is you can't see patterns. You can't see injustice, right? And that means you're ignoring it. So people who say, I don't see color now, I'm like, you don't get it either.
Right.
So,
wow.
We talked about the Martin Luther King quote that we won't remember the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And for me, that really hit when this all began. I knew people hated me because of color skin, like of my skin. I went to law school. I went to PF. I had teachers say some deplorable things. I ran for an election at my law school, and there were emails going around saying, don't vote for the black trash. And like, I've lived it, even though, Black people may consider me part of the privilege, and I recognize my privilege. I've actually lived racism and systematically, right? I haven't been pulled from a car or gun or anything like that, but it's still valid, right?
Right.
So when I see people who, oh, hi, Krystle, hey, we love Krystle. I get that a lot. Oh, we just love Krystle. And for me, it's hard because do you love Krystle just because she's non-threatening? Do you love Krystle because she doesn't talk about race relations? And if half the people who truly knew me would probably be surprised at how actually militant I am. Yeah. I choose to speak on things when I understand that the audience is ready and primed and receptive. Otherwise, I'd be quiet because I'm not going to waste my energy.
Right.
But, as I begin to speak out, I wonder, like, okay, are we really rocking no more? Am I now threatening Black girl, because I'm standing with my people, or am I not, like, oh, Krystle, because I know how to code switch, right? I know how to change my voice up. I know how to do all that.
Tell people what code switch is, because I did not know. So tell white people what code switching is.
All right, so code switching is if I am met with a group of people who look like me or brown, I'm like, yo, fam, what's good? Hey, I have the freedom to use the vernacular. I have the freedom to speak freely, and to not have to think about grammar and all that kind of stuff. But if I'm with white people, I know how to code switch. I'm like, hey, how are you? It's good to see you. Hey, Brett. Oh my gosh, are you enjoying this weather? This is amazing, and I do it well. Like, I do it pretty darn good. But I perfected it over the years. I have a t-shirt coming all my life I've had to code switch, and it's real. It's a real thing.
Well, and okay, so we just talked about this earlier this week, and I have to like have an honest moment. My closest Black friends code switch around me, and it made me start to wonder, do I know them? And that is like, oof, like that makes my heart hurt, but also makes me very aware. And it could be that we just jive on the same wavelength. You know what I mean? That our personalities are similar. But there's also this thought of, are they having to code switch around me? And does that make them feel uncomfortable? And what does it look like? And so I just want to thank you for like giving light into that, because again, I wouldn't have known. You know what I mean? And so it's so powerful just to pause and say, okay, yeah. So thank you for that.
No, it's a real thing. But I have a question for you. Do you feel like when you're with white people and when you're with Black, because I know you have a diverse group of people you live, you interact with. Do you act differently in the white community than you do in the Black community?
Oh, absolutely. Hold on. My computer's dying. How did I not think to grab my charger? 5 seconds. I'm coming back. Hold the question.
Okay.
Oh, man. Yo, I'm not editing that out. I'm here for it.
Totally fine.
I am here for it. Okay, yes. How did I forget to grab a charger? Come on, B. We're smarter than this. All right. I'm back. All right, we're good. And I'm not going to edit that out. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, hey. Okay, so yes, absolutely. And okay, I know I have to say this out loud. I actually feel more myself in the Black community. And I know that sounds weird. I'm not saying I'm not.
Yeah. No self-hatred. Right.
Right. I'm not saying like, I don't find white people. I'm saying like, when I am with a group of Black people, I actually feel more myself than when I'm with a group of white people. I don't know why that is. And it could be where I grew up. I grew up in a very diverse. And so, but the answer is yes, like 100%, tenfold. And I do it all the time. Yeah. It's not even like, oh, sometimes she acts like if I come up to a group of Black people, I'm like, hey, it's so lame. It's fine.
No. And when I first met you, I'm gonna be completely transparent. When I first saw you, I didn't know you yet. And you were dancing. We were at the gym, and you were dancing like a Black girl. I was like, what is she doing? And I literally was like, she doing that only because I'm here.
For my father's business girls, that's like, Miss B, you cannot dance. Yes, I can.
Yeah, you can dance. You can dance. And, as an avid lover of the dance, I was like, yeah, this is a jam and everything, but why you dance? I thought that you were dancing like that because when I come look at all those people where we work out, they don't dance like we do, right? So I'm like, is she doing this only because I'm here? And she trying to like show that she woke, so I was like, and it took me a couple, and then you said something to me when we were running one day, and I was like, oh, okay, she cool.
No, can we tell them what I said?
Yeah, go
okay. So for anybody that doesn't know me and Krystle, this is how we met. Outside of me dancing in the gym and her being like, who is she? So we're running. It's the last round, and I don't know her. I really don't know her. I actually thought you were a lot younger, and I thought you played basketball. How stereotypical is that of a white person? Oh, she
must play ball.
Sports. What? No, she owned the daycare, Britt. Anyways, and so last lap around, Krystle starts walking. Who walks in the last round? So I run past her. I'm like, girl, if you were gonna walk, you should have done that 20 minutes ago.
And I thought I'm like, who is she? Think she's talking to? I'm like, wait a minute. I'm grabbing hair. Hold up. Wait a minute.
Hugging speed past that, like you would say. That's at TikTok.
Right.
But yeah, so I don't know. It's just it's so true though, and I think even white people code switch, but I wouldn't have known that, until you kind of really like put that in perspective for me. And I think that's what, so much of this is like white people are finally asking hard questions that we should have been asking a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this while I was praying the other day. I was in our city praying, and I'm like, I should have been here a long time ago. Like, and I keep wondering, like, this is what I keep thinking about today is like, obviously George Floyd was a believer, and like, is he in heaven right now with Jesus? Like, and like, I just picture this moment where him and Jesus are hanging out, and he's like, hey, George, I know that was painful, but I want you to look at what your life has begun. And he's seeing all of this. And there's that video that came out of his daughter. I don't know if you've seen it yet. His daughter was at a protest last night, and she just shouts out, my dad changed the world.
Wow.
And I got even chill bumps saying that. Like, such a painful death, such an unjustified death. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yet so much beauty can come, and so much healing is happening because this happened. And like, and I don't like to put, you know, a human life in that perspective, but I just keep wondering, like, what do the heavens look like right now?
Yeah, that's powerful. My family and I were talking about it, and I was telling them, I said, I honestly believe there was something powerful on his life, a call of God on his life, because the earth is literally crying out. So what we're seeing is a cry, a upheaval, like, God, we can't take anymore. Right. And the sad thing is, he's not the first one. There's so many people, even like Rodney King. That stuff was only like 30 years ago, right? So my entire lifetime, I'll be 33, your entire lifetime has been watching people of white people kill people, men of color, and getting away with it. There has been such a pattern of this thing going on for so long. And I really just believe that now it's like time that people begin to feel, recognize that we all play a part. And it's not going to just end with the protesting and things like that. We have to have systematic change at this point. Otherwise, we're just going to have to do this again in 10 years? Right. Like, let's a couple months. Lord Jesus, no time for it. But
also, like, as I like keep going, like, okay, but we can't take our foot off the gas pedal. You know, that's my biggest, I don't want to say my fear, but that's like my biggest awareness is when the protests end in 2 weeks, when things calm down, will this passion and this fire and this willingness to stand on the line, will it still happen? And I think as white people, we've got to get really comfortable. You told me this, like, you got to get really comfortable being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
And, I don't know.
Yeah, well, like we were talking about, learning is offensive, right? I wanted to be a doctor growing up. I just knew I was going to be a pediatrician, but math offended me. I would, be faced with equations and these numbers and letters that could add up stuff. How does that letter, have a quantity, right? But it was offensive. And when we're met with something that we don't understand, it offends our mind before it can actually teach and make an impact. So it's literally people becoming okay with that offense, knowing that it's not a personal attack, but the personal attack comes when people are continually advocating and pushing against you, and you're standing staunchly in your belief. Then that's when we're like, you know what, you're one people.
Right.
It's like that. And my pastor was talking last night, something so profound. He was talking about justice versus accountability, and that there needs to be a discussion of what does justice look like. I think a lot of people are just saying justice. That just means jail time. But really, justice is not just jail time. Justice is a systematic accountability, looking at things on each level. Like, what are we going to do to cause this not to happen again? There needs to be real reform, right? There needs to be white people willing to hire men of color who are equally qualified. There needs to be discussions in classrooms, discussions at dinner tables with white families that are, saying, there needs to be challenges in everyday circles, because once you change your world, the whole world can change. It's very small. It starts with small steps. Everybody is a part of it.
Yeah. But I love what you say about like the offensive, and we talked a lot about this the other day, because there's like this, it's almost like this shock effect, and we've heard the word white supremacy a lot lately, white America, white privilege, all of those things. And I think the first time you hear that, you're like, no, that's not me.
You're offended, right?
You're like,
I'm not racist.
I'm not a white supremacist. I am not a part of that. I am not racist. That's not the point.
No.
And we talk about this. It's not necessarily about my heart. It's about my heritage. And I come from a different place of it, because I do realize that there are some people, this is about their heart, and that's okay. But for me, personally, this isn't necessarily about my heart. This is about my heritage. And this is about me getting really comfortable at gripping the handlebar and being okay, being the first shock for people. And I know that is like I've witnessed it this week, and I've even wondered, like, what do my white friends think? And I've a couple of things I've done have gone viral, and it's like, I just keep like, I feel like for me, I'm like, I hope my Black friends know that the posting isn't for them, that I'm for them.
Right.
Know that, like, I'll ask the hard questions and stand on the line, but I would love just to kind of walk through for you. How did it feel last week when white people started stepping up? Because I know your timeline is so different. You've got friends from all different areas and different things. And again, you just helped me walk through so much of this. It's not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And how, I know you can't speak for the whole Black community, but what are just some raw feelings that you guys are feeling as you're watching this unfold?
That we're watching people stand with us.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that there's a couple different positions that I've seen being taken. I've seen people. I have to taste my words.
Taste your words.
This is a part of the burden of being African American, though. We represent, like, when people watch this,
right,
they're going to associate me with every Black person they meet. That's like the whole angry Black woman thing. Like, I can't be an angry Black woman, right?
Yeah. And while you think about it, you know, it's like, it's so true what we talked about. We can't be casual. Either of us, we both have like a pretty large platform that we serve on. And so it's like, our words cannot be casual. Everything has to be followed up with like, this is my heart.
Right. But I love everybody, you know what I'm saying? So, like, but I love you, fam.
Yeah. Okay, now go.
Right. I've seen a plethora of responses. I've seen people who have been like, you know, thank you guys. Thank you for standing. We need you.
Yeah.
I've seen comments that, thank you, but this is what you should have been doing. You know,
Yeah.
I've seen comments saying, we appreciate your post, but don't expect applause. I've seen comments and emotions saying, you know, I've even seen, like, we're tired of seeing Black people and police officers take pictures. Like, they're, like, you know, associating with perpetual cycles of violence and mistreatment. I've seen the gamut. I have definitely seen the gamut. And for me, I had to check my own heart, because I'm like, guys, come on. Because in my community, I would be considered the more MLK. But what I've been seeing people using MLK is to kind of calm us down. Like, come on, MLK wouldn't want you to do that. And then the response is, well, y'all kill MLK. You know what I'm saying? So there's a mixture. So for me, I've had to choose to stand in who I am and be consistent with who I am. And sometimes I see some of my more radical friends or even my family members, and I'm, dang, I wish I could be like that. But God didn't, you know, he didn't grace me that way. So I have to go with where my grace is. But the responses are definitely diverse. For me, I would say it's appreciated, but for me, I'm always very cautious because it's very popular right now to stand with Black lives.
Right.
But my question will come in a couple months, and you have interviews with Black people and white candidates. And I worked for a very large university in Chicago, and they would put me on the panels all the time because I was the Black girl. And I remember shocking them. I was like, oh, so are we just gonna pick the white person here? Like, are you happy here? Just, you know, and they were looking at me, and I used to love shocking them people. But it's gonna be the boots on the ground that makes an impact. Appreciate your post, appreciate your prayers, appreciate your Black, you know, your Black squares and everything. But what you gonna do when you get to work?
But what are you gonna keep doing?
What are you gonna keep doing?
I think this is more of a question for leaders that it just kind of dawned on my mind when you said you were invited onto panels. So I know as leaders, we're like not even feeling pressure. It's not coming from anywhere, but there's this ask of like wanting to invite like Black people into videos, wanting to invite them into different segments and different things. Is that offensive right now?
No, I think it's necessary.
Okay.
I think there needs to be difficult conversations to be had. And I will hope we can have these conversations ongoing, because there are people who are afraid to have the conversations, right? And there are people who are thinking some of the things you're thinking some of the things they're thinking, and they need to just all come in the same room and think together, right? But there's no facilitation of that. So I think that we know which ones are going to be called on. Like, it's like an unspoken thing, like, oh, they're going to call her. Like, they're gonna call her. They're definitely gonna call her.
Definitely.
And then we know the ones that are not gonna be called on because
Yeah.
they're, white people are afraid of what they're gonna say or what they're gonna do or what they're gonna represent or how they're gonna challenge, right?
Right.
I always say we need everybody. We need the radical Black people. We need the calmer Black people. We need everybody in the between. We need everybody. So I'm for it. I think that people know who they're gonna call on. But as we have a heavy responsibility, because I was praying about this. I'm like, God, Lord Jesus. I'm like, I'm gonna get up on here. My people go see like what they gonna think. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to stand up and say something out loud. I get it. I'm Black.
Right.
So I can, white people. I know y'all scared.
Oh my God.
Like, I'm gonna lose my members. Or I'm gonna lose my support. My business is filled with white folk. You know what I'm saying? So like, here comes my vernacular. I get it.
Right.
I get it. It is scary. I get it. We all scared. But
Right.
my thing to that would be imagine living that every day.
I know. Yes.
Imagine.
Yes.
I have cousins and I have brothers and I have a father that's Black. I have nephews and clients that are Black boys. And if I ever got a call that this happened to them, man, I don't even want to think about it. But I would be like the ones, looting.
Right.
I would loot too. If this is what you're going to pay attention to, I'll loot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's what it took by any means necessary, right?
Yeah.
Like, until it hits your front door, you don't know what you'll do.
Right.
So you can't judge. You cannot judge.
Good.
You can't judge. You can't.
Yeah. And we haven't felt that pain. And so it's like,
the world would stop if that was a Black man who did that to a white man.
Yeah.
Literally, the world would stop.
It would stop. And I think one of the more powerful signs I've seen that went viral was this young boy that was holding up a sign that said, "When do I go from cute to scary?"
My God, I saw that last night.
And I was like, and so I work in ministry with a lot of young Black men, and I'm like, when is that? Because some of them, like, I do presume them as scary. I hate to admit that as a white person, like, but there are things in me that I'm like, I'm a little hesitant, but what is that? It was a very reflective moment for me. What makes it that my kids that are, 10, that I'm like, oh, they're so cute. Like, I love them. I'm for them. And then my kids that are 18, that I'm like, we need another person in the car. That is racism. And we don't see that as racism. That is like deep rooted.
Nice. Mm-hmm.
And again, nobody means to. And you can use that as wisdom, not being alone. I wouldn't be alone in a car with a guy anyways, but especially when you're 18. But all that being said, it's not even about, I'll just shoot straight. It's not about the legalistic part. It's about the heart. That for me is a awakening of something still needs to shift. You can have a good heart. You can be for it, but you've got to uproot that and come face to face with it. And so I don't know.
No, I think the most powerful thing you said here is the acknowledgement. I think with this stuff, justice is really going to start as awareness, and people everywhere looking at some of those thoughts that we had that we don't necessarily speak on. And the thing I would say with like being afraid with large groups of men or Black men that are tall, the problem with being afraid is I never try to discredit feelings, right? Because I feel like emotions are alarm systems. They're there to tell us something's wrong until we face it, right? Like it's our measuring tool.
Yep.
So sometimes you may be in danger. So I never want to discredit, feelings. However, the problem is when that translates into boardrooms when there's no danger.
Right.
Then when that translates to reading resumes and you see Jawan and I don't even know a white guy's name. I'm sorry, Brock.
Ben.
I don't know. Yeah, Ben. You see a Jawan and Ben, and you're going with Ben because you're scared of Jawan. The problem is that feeling translates to every sphere of your world, and you are placing that fear in decisions. That's what I would say when I'm saying alarm to that, because you have to use wisdom. I worked in the inner city for years, and I loved the work I did. I worked for a youth center for children who were abandoned. I did intake and casework management, and for children that were abused, and it was it was filled with Black kids. So it was a shelter, and they lived there. And at first, it's on the south side of Chicago. I was afraid. My parents were like, "Girl, you going out there? You from the burbs? You super? You know what I'm saying? You are like wet behind the ears. You're naive. Watch your back when you're going into work and
Your
stuff."
parents saying that too.
Yeah, so it's a fear factor for everybody, right? But I have a responsibility. I chose to say this could be scary, but I'm not going to judge a book by its cover.
Right.
And when I got in there, them kids talked about me. They were hilarious. Where you from? Why you talk like that? What are we talking about where I'm from?
Right.
I'm from here. You know what I'm saying? I'm from Chicago, baby. Yeah. You know, so I had to prove myself.
No, you're not.
No, I'm not. But I had to prove myself and make an impact because I knew, even though it was uncomfortable, I can't sign out because it's uncomfortable.
Right.
That would be, to me, that's racism.
Right.
It's that signing out like, ooh, it's too much.
Right.
I'll back that thing up.
Well, and it's so much of the bystander effect, which I would love for us to talk about because white people, like, you've got to listen to this because I was subjected to it. And I watched the Ahmaud Arbery case go down. And, like, these are really raw, honest feelings. And so I'm sure I'll get some flack for it. But I watched it go down and I'm like, well, a lot of white people are talking about it. It doesn't need me. It doesn't need me. And even so much so, this is really ugly. I, like, hate that this is coming out. But I'll be honest, like, so much so that I'm like, I mean, but I don't know the full story. You know, and that is the line that keeps white people in their white lane. But
I'm waiting till all the evidence comes out.
Yeah, I want to see everything first. And
what was his rap sheet?
Right, like what was the real story behind it? This is like the I don't even know what to call this, but this is like our kryptonite because we want all the facts. Everybody wants the facts. Of course, you want the facts, but having the facts doesn't change the fact that there's still something wrong. You know, and watching the Ahmaud Arbery case go down, for me, I was like, oh, it doesn't need my voice. And then, obviously, last week, I finally spoke up. And I just keep wondering how many leaders are out there that they're just not saying anything. And you see it and you know it, but you're like, it doesn't. There's enough people talking about it. And I don't know the full story.
I think that that's a real question of responsibility. I think that, you know, as an attorney, I love contractual things. Yeah. And I think that people feel like they aren't a part. It's like not their job. So the bystander effect is, it's kind of like when you see a car accident, right? And it's like a whole bunch of people watching it, but you're thinking everybody's calling and no one calls, right? Mm-hmm. This is an actual thing. So it's recognizing, I'm a big proponent of self-awareness. It's recognizing that I have a voice, I have a stage, I have a platform, and my silence not only speaks, but my silence perpetuates the injustice. Ooh. Because you have a responsibility to educate the people that you are called to, right? So if you are choosing the bystander, oh, it's enough white people out there doing thing, you know, they're getting it in. I'm going to keep my members and stay safe in my bubble. You're actually perpetuating it because you don't know what kind of races live in your audience. Yeah. And until you offend their minds with some knowledge and some information, they can never change. Yep. If they go untouched and unscathed, then what's going to happen, right? Like, it's like a kid riding a bike. If they never fall down, they're never going to, you know, we all know you're going to fall when you ride that. Right. It's going to hurt. Yep. Let it hurt. You know what I'm saying? Sit there in that pain. So it's really taking ownership of the role that you play in your circles.
Yeah. And I think even one thing that you really just kind of spoken to me is it's okay if people walk away. And Absolutely. That is really a hard pill for us to swallow. So I lived in the South for 6 years, and I would say 45% of my the people that listen to my podcast or anything, about 45% are between the ages of 18 and 35 and live in the South, or what we would call a hot state. And for me, coming out last week, I'm like, I have to get in my head that I've got to be ready to respond for why I'm deciding to take the position I am. And I want us to touch on two things specifically. I want us to touch on All Lives Matter because it's something that I am not willing to type out. I don't have time for this. And I actually, if somebody comments that, I have to like figure out a craft or something to come up with it because I read it and I'm like, I want to respond, but I actually don't have time to respond right now because there's other things that are more precedent right now because you're not getting it. That sounds so harsh. But like, it's true. And, you know, I know we've talked about this. I would love for you to hear your thoughts on how it feels when you hear that. But it's like one house being on fire and us spraying down the whole neighborhood as the fire department. And to take it a step further, the fire department is the one that calls the fire. You know what I mean? Like, and so we're trying to blanket this with All Lives Matter. Of course, All Lives Matter, but we're not talking about All Lives Matter. We're talking about Black Lives Mattering. And so can you tell us, like, how does that feel?
Yeah, it's pretty messed up. When I see it on my timeline, I'm like, all right, thank you, you know. Yeah, I won't block you because I feel like you still need to hear me, so I'll unfollow you.
I'm gonna unfollow.
Yeah, because it's traumatic, right? You're basically saying, we appreciate your pain, but we're all important.
Right.
And it's actually taking a stance on the side of the oppression. Honestly, it's saying that, you know what, you're hurting, but you know, I've had pain as well. But my pain, it's actually, let me put it like this. Okay, in court, right?
Yep.
You know, beyond a reasonable doubt. And what we're looking at when people say all lives matter is they're ignoring the evidence.
Yeah.
That's like a jury coming up with a verdict despite the evidence of a mob robbery. George Floyd, we can go back decades of tons of people that have been killed by brutality and racism.
Yep.
And it's looking at all that, understanding the statistics of how many Black men are unemployed that are qualified, and even the unemployment rate of our body of people in our community, even the systematic racism with redlining and how they draw the lines for where kids go to school, all that. It's looking at all that and saying, yeah, we get it, but everybody. Right. So you're ignoring the facts.
Yep.
So now you're telling me not only are you actually negating your statement with that statement, it's like,
what?
Yeah.
So,
but for us, it's like a sign that you're racist. Like, we're thinking that,
exactly. It's like, you don't care. And so obviously we were together last night at the Zion gathering, and the Zion Police Department, their chief of police, I shared it. I don't know if you read it, but like he came out with this statement, and he said, let me pull it up specifically.
You haven't been on social media yet today.
I don't want to. I know it's a lot. I'm actually having to delete Facebook off of my thing all the time.
Yeah.
I just will spend so much time on it. But this is what, I'll just read the end of this because it's so powerful. He said, I was reflecting on the phrase Black Lives Matter the other day. I thought of the 3 children that are now adults, which my wife and I have raised. As young children, there were times when one child would feel slighted, neglected, or unloved. Our response as parents was not to tell them that we loved all of our children, but to tell them individually that we loved them. At the risk of sounding over paternalistic, there's a segment in America that is hurting and wondering if they are loved and valued. Those Americans don't need to hear all lives matter. They know that. What they need to hear, especially now, is Black Lives Matter. They need to hear that from us. They need to hear that from me. That was a police. And so but what a good way to put it. You know what I mean?
It is. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm tasting words. It's vital. It's vital that we speak and then we also act. Mm-hmm. I'm very moved by the statements, and I just pray, my prayer has been, God, let it be sustainable.
Yeah.
Right. Let this impact, let this global uproar, sustain that. Mm-hmm. And we all start taking part of making that unloved child feel loved.
Yeah.
And not just taking a part, not an apathetic role, but an active role, getting up and, being a verb, doing something.
Right. Doing it.
Yeah, that's been my prayer, honestly.
So as we, I think we're about an hour right now. So as we wrap up, let's, can we talk about maybe 3 things that white people can do outside of educating ourselves? I think that since it's going, since things are going for $60 on Amazon, we're in the right direction. We are taking a step in the right direction. When a book on white fragility is $65, that means something shook in America and we flipped the switch, as TikTok would say.
Yes.
And, which I think is great. But I would love just a couple of thoughts on how do we continue the conversation? How do we continue to take strides when this calms down? Because it will. Mm-hmm. What does that look like afterwards?
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of the discussion of leadership across the world. And even on my page, people are trying to figure out what can we do next. And beyond education and self-awareness and accountability, I think it's going to be now, like, where are we supporting? I think that systematically we need to be able to shift. So there are different companies that have stood on certain sides, made a certain stance. So I think the next impact is going to be pushing like finance, because even as the Bible says, where your treasure lies, your heart, something like that. So where do you put your money? Where are you sowing your seed? Who are you supporting financially? Because money is what rules the world, right? So it's like, where are we driving our finances that can kind of pull support and power from behind some of these more racist institutions, and putting our money towards where it really matters. Mm-hmm. And people who are in power. So even myself, I'm starting to research what kind of community boards can I get on to have representation. And where I live, I don't think there's much representation, because But
Zion,
I live in Gurney.
can you move here?
Yeah, because I'm like, mighty God. So so it's like starting out to seek out things that what we can do to kind of cause that change. So you know, finding places, pulling, I think number one would be like looking to where making a conscious decision not to support certain things financially, to kind of pull the power. Then looking for positions of change, looking for positions that your voice can actually be heard. Because the truth of the matter, some voices are strong. You don't need a whole bunch of loud people because that's just noise. But putting your support behind something that's already moving and giving it financially, time, volunteering, whatever that may look like for you. And then just finding, I would just say to everyone, white and black and whatever, finding something every day to make an impact. Because it's like chipping away at something, right? You know, finding every day, making your mind, you know what, I need to do something today that can support this movement, and making a conscious decision foundationally that you're going to do it, you know, 365. And that will keep this momentum going.
Yeah, that's so good. Cool. Thank you. Any final thoughts before we sign off today?
No.
We got to do this again. This was good.
Absolutely.
We got to do this again.
Maybe get questions from white people that
yes. Oh, yes. All right. That's a great. So white people.
Hey, white people, what do you think?
White people, send me your questions, and we'll tackle them, because I just love you, and
I love you too.
you like are so brilliant, and I'm so honored to
God.
learn from you as we fumble our way through learning. And so white people, send us your questions. Krystle, thank you for hanging out today.
Oh, no problem, girl. Thank you for having me.
I love you.
I look forward to it. Love you too.
All right, talk to you later.
All right, bye.
Bye.